Good evening and welcome to the Libertarian Party of Hawaii Bylaws and Platform Committee. It is 7:15 on Monday, April 20th. We are here. We'll call to order at 7:15, and Madam Secretary, I will let you take over from here.
All right, we have with us today Austin Martin, Nicholas Zehr, Abbra Green, and Bryce Thon, who are all voting members of the committee. And then we also have Celina Monge viewing tonight. Today for minutes and revisions, we're going to be voting on the last two because we didn't have enough members, I believe, at the last one to do that. So that will be for April 6th, 2026 and March 16th, 2026.
Okay, cool. The first item is the minutes and revisions from the past two meetings. Everybody has a copy of these. We'll go ahead and vote on these. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll move us to a vote. All right, all of those. I'm sorry. Is there any objection to the minutes and revisions from April 6th and March 16th? Going once, going twice. Passes without objection. The next item of business is tonight's agenda. Are there any proposed amendments or discussion for the agenda tonight? Is there any objection? Passes without objection. There's no unfinished business, so we'll begin with new business. I want to thank Secretary Abbra for getting this in order for us. She's taken the time to kind of compile some notes and comments on the finished product because we have finished our first pass completely through the bylaws. Congratulations, everyone. And it passed without objection. Sorry. No worries. So yeah, we now have a finished draft, a semi-final draft, if you will. We will be going back through this, reviewing comments and questions about language and the effect of provisions. So this is a great opportunity to have a little bit more open discussion on kind of what we think the effect of certain language will be, if we want to rewrite, rethink, or any of that, reopen any of it. If you weren't here previously, this will give you a chance to kind of raise any issues that you want, and we'll probably do it again. So cool. Without any further discussion, Abbra, I will let you go ahead and move us into your proposed comments and notes.
All right, I'm just going to go down the line from the top. Where are we at? Article 3, membership, section 1D currently reads, are in good standing, defined as having paid dues if applicable and not being subject to disciplinary action or suspension under Article 7. I'd like to propose that we amend this to read, are in good standing, defined as having paid required dues if applicable, and E, a new subsection that reads, not under a final suspension or disciplinary penalty imposed under Article 7. A member who is subject to an emergency or temporary suspension pending a hearing shall retain all membership rights until the state committee issues a final decision. The logic here is that we don't want a temporary suspension to turn into a violation of voters' rights.
One thing I would suggest, you're talking about their membership rights as like a delegate at convention, right? Not like their board rights.
Right, like membership rights.
Right. So a suspension from the board would not necessarily interfere with their ability to participate in convention.
Right.
Right. It would take away their board position until that's determined. But even if they're determined to have been guilty of whatever it is and removed from the board, they still don't lose their membership rights. That is a separate issue than board rights. And I don't think you need to specify it because that's already the default. That would be my thought. would be one side of it.
Well, right now it reads, and not being subject to disciplinary action or suspension.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Although, but here's the thing, like there are some things that you could under a suspended member that you could, I don't know. That's a good point. It does bring in an issue there that
If you don't think we need that clause, we could just
I think
shorten that part.
I think it's better to include it, to be completely honest, because then it gives you it actually couples those issues then, and then that would be a good argument in favor of retaining language that provided that member is still allowed to participate county and state conventions. But the real question is, do you want them to be able to? If they're under a suspension for cause, it's not because they didn't like them in the committee, but because there's something serious enough to warrant, action. Is that always the right way of it? I don't know. Let's say
Well, that's why I was suggesting that you make the distinction between a temporary suspension and
yeah.
no,
you know what?
Membership, I don't know.
You know what? I would say, just on a side trail, dues is technically the wrong word. It would be meet the qualifications of a sustaining member would be the language that we want, because technically what we have is a donation requirement, and they are not technically dues in the strictest sense of the legal word dues. I would note that.
So we could change dues. Are in good standing.
Meet the qualifications of a sustaining member pursuant to.
Well,
no, but yeah, this is the pursuant to. So yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. So hold on, and meet the donation or threshold for sustaining member as currently reflected in these as determined according to these bylaws. Don't say dues, say meet the current donation threshold to qualify as a sustaining member as set forth in these bylaws.
Maybe I missed it. Is there a reason that you'd want that instead of dues?
Because legally speaking, dues are different. We can leave it. We can totally leave it, but dues are technically different. They accrue a financial obligation if you do not pay them, right? So someone doesn't pay dues, then they go into arrears, and it's actually like a debt.
If we change dues here, I would suggest we change dues.
Yeah,
match.
That was what I was about to say, is that everywhere where the word dues is used might present this ambiguity over whether or not it's dues or a donation requirement. This is an argument that's currently playing out in the LMC, is that the word dues, while used, is technically not accurate. It is technically a donation requirement and not a dues requirement. Right. And that may sound like a meaningless distinction, but it's not. The donation requirement is you donate X amount to us per year minimum, and that gives you your voting rights. Right. A dues requirement is where your membership rights and all of that would be tied to the payment of an ongoing support debt that the organization is owed. Right. Meaning it's not a donation. It is a payment that is owed to the organization. And that is a legal distinction. So dues can go into arrears, right? And that has a whole thing about members in arrears for Roner, right? But donation requirements cannot go into arrears, right? So you cannot collect a debt.
Okay, so I meet the current donation threshold required from a sustaining member.
Yes, or you can say financial obligations as set forth in these bylaws to qualify as a sustaining member.
Weren't you just trying to avoid making it
the financial qualifications?
Financial.
And I'm shooting from the hip. I'm shooting from the hip. So feel free to suggest something better than financial qualifications. Like, I think, yeah, donation threshold would work too. Whatever we call it, it should probably be consistent. We can call it dues, but at some point we should say dues. You know what would be easier than changing the dues word? Is just define dues as a donation requirement. And not like make it clear that it's not the normal application of dues, but that it is a voluntary donation requirement, which does not accrue in arrears.
Would that
The
be
party
further
dues
down
are a donation requirement.
in this section right now, or do we jump?
We can define it anywhere as long as somewhere in the bylaws the word dues is defined. We can use that word as long as we say what we mean by it. Does that make sense? Because otherwise it defaults to a legal meaning that is technically different than how our organization uses it. That's a recipe for fuckery, right? So what we can do is define dues, party dues, as being that voluntary donation requirement in order to obtain full membership rights as a sustaining member, to meet the qualifications of a sustaining member. That way it's not it's not something that it's a non-obligatory. A donation is a non-obligatory payment, right? So when you define dues as a donation, it takes away the idea that it could be like a debt. Is that making sense, by the way? It seems nitpicky,
Yeah.
but
Party dues are annual fees for membership rights determined by membership level.
change
All
fees,
members must adhere to Article 3, Section.
change the word fees to the word donation. Our annual donation requirements. There you go, for membership rights.
Is it a donation though if they don't pay it, then they're not a member?
I
I
thought
feel
we
like
always
fee would be
separated
a
donations from dues.
Yeah, because here's the
Yeah.
thing, it's not a fee, right? In order for your membership rights to be recognized, you must meet the threshold of donating at least blank amount to our party, right? So it's not a fee that you're paying in exchange for membership rights, but it's a right that we recognize, or rather a privilege that we recognize at a certain level of donation. So when you donate, $25 to the party, right, you have donated enough, right, for you to have an effective voice. But we're not getting into a contractual relationship where it's like you're paying a fee for services, right? Fees are for services, whereas donations are given more strings, no strings attached, right? So fees imply more strings attached than donations. Does that make sense?
Could see that.
I think the correct word for how we currently charge our situation is that we have to define dues as a donation and not as a fee or recurring bill. Like a fee is something you could go after someone in court for, right? A donation is not.
So I would say that our page as it is now, it does separate membership button versus donation button. And granted, on the PayPal side, granted, I know it's a PayPalism, but people do obviously, like from convention, totally try to recruit money, saying that like they did not receive the rights granted by paying, as if it is a service that wasn't fulfilled.
Technically, we could change this to where we just have the pledge as something that they can check to become a member at the donation form. I think it's more just for psychological purposes to separate that membership when you pay.
Is it reported differently?
No, either way, in
No.
as far as these go, it's our practice is to report membership dues to the CSC. There is a question over whether or not we actually have to, since most membership dues go to administrative costs. But the only way we could avoid reporting them to the CSC by classifying them as administrative costs is if we did not commingle our administrative and state elections bank accounts. Since they are together and we don't separate them, we have to report all of the membership dues as donations to the CSC.
I see what you mean.
Yeah, if we wanted to, in theory, it would make more work for Mr. Zehr, so I don't recommend we do it at this time. But if we wanted to keep our administrative costs separate from our elections costs, which is smart, then by separating those bank accounts, only the state election account becomes reportable to the CSC.
So your motion is to change fees to annual donations, right?
Yeah, or our annual donation thresholds even. Party dues are annual donation thresholds for membership rights. Donation requirements or donation prerequisites.
Wait. Are you
Which
listing all of these, or?
I would say any way that you want to say it. And then I would say instead of determined by, I would say which determine membership level. Right? The donation amount determines your membership level, not the other way around.
So motion.
I'm sorry to make it complicated. It's simple in my head, I promise. Annual donation threshold, which determines membership level, would be what I'm proposing to replace that with.
Which determines
Membership level. I think this more accurately describes what is, right? Whereas this describes something that, while subtle and would not force us to necessarily change anything, sets us up for ambiguity in the future and possibly, issues. Unintentional breaches included. Like if you don't collect past dues that are due from members that did not resign their membership, they technically owe a debt for fees, right, based on their membership level that they did not cancel or revoke, right? It's a silly thing, but it's technically true. So a future board, if they wanted to, could say, hey, you never resigned, you owe us this much. They would be technically right. Would they get it in court? I don't know, but you wouldn't want to test some psycho who manages to somehow rise to the top of this organization. And I wouldn't put it, I would, like, so no, that's where this is coming from based on the recent controversy with the LNC to change annual donation threshold, which determines membership level rather than annual fees for membership rights determined by membership level.
Oh, do I still need to put for membership rights?
You don't need to. I think it's well enough implied there.
Yeah, because we go over it. Rights.
Also, there may be, like, if you wanted to do free, like you're a registered libertarian, do you have a right to receive the newsletter? I don't know. I think it's one of those things that's determined by the relationship, not necessarily by I'm sorry, I'm segueing really bad. I'm just kind of thinking out loud, so forgive me, guys. That is my motion. If there's a second, we can go ahead and procedurally stick it on the menu.
I'll second it. Why not?
Cool. Any discussion? Do we all like this language?
Sure, not
Cool.
opposed.
All right. Cool. I'll call the question. Is there any objection to the motion as presented? Going once, going twice. Passes without objection. All right. Sorry about that for the long segue there, but that was a really good catch, Abra, in highlighting that question. Okay, so good standing having paid requires dues is now defined. So nobody can sit there and say, you're required to pay your dues and you haven't paid in 20 years. You owe us $20,000 with interest, you know?
Now we have two different languages here. We have dues and we have,
Dues defined. Party dues are annual donations which
Okay.
determine
Gotcha.
membership level.
or
That protects us from ambiguity in what is dues, what are fees, what are donations, right? Because they're not paying a fee, they're paying us a donation, which we report as a donation, right? Not as a fee. So we're not dedicating that to administrative costs as a fee for administration that's a due from our members, which we might be able to put some of that into our state bank account to influence politics. But if we did, we would have to declare that as a donation into that account, right? Like, and I'm not even sure you can do that. It might be like the FEC account where you cannot move it back and forth. So, in fact, that's probably the case.
were you saying that we don't need to distinguish temporary suspension here?
I do not believe so.
Okay.
I believe that if you suspend somebody, the level of which, like, you don't want to.
anyone is opposed, then I'm willing to withdraw that motion.
Pending hearing shall retain all membership rights until the state committee issues a final decision. I think that the language there could lead to misunderstanding about what is intended by membership rights. Like committee membership rights are different than party membership rights, right? And I think that confusion is deepened rather than solved by that language. And if you try to get
Okay.
too specific, it
Yeah.
it could complicate things, and you're making a final decision on that. Whereas if you leave that open, the assumption of rights is there, right?
Okay.
But the ability to argue against certain things, like for instance, if somebody is really being absolutely terrible, right, and whatnot, you want your committee to be able to deal with that. So they may have a right to observe meetings, but if there's a disciplinary action to uphold order which requires you to remove them, you don't want them to come and say that's an ongoing breach of the bylaws because I was allowed to observe, right, to the extent that they feel like they can
Yeah.
disrupt. Even though that's fairly well said, if you articulate it too hard here, then I think you bring it out of Roner into the bylaws and you could accidentally create a problem.
Okay. I'm gonna withdraw that one.
I appreciate it though. It's always good to err on the side of membership rights. As long as we do that in general, then we don't have to specifically articulate it in a way that could.
I noticed that there's no minimum on dropping the amount of dues. And if that's on purpose, that's one thing, but I did think of like, you probably want some operational cost recovery for dues as a minimum.
I mean, in theory, if an executive committee raises the dues and they can only raise it by so much, I mean, it makes sense that you could just say there's no absolute price movement more than blank. but then that's a hard and fast rule you
No,
have
I'm
to live
not
with.
talking about a maximum. I'm talking about a minimum.
I know the minimum thing, if you just open it up and say you have a committee that wants to open it up and lower dues requirements all the way, that's kind of what you're envisioning.
Yeah, like, can they just make it free?
In theory, I guess that could be open, huh? What do you guys think? What does this say? Maybe raised.
Um,
Sustaining members pay the standard
How about
dues amount.
how about we revise this to say maybe raised as necessary for to cover costs, or lowered as necessary. No, maybe raised or lowered as necessary to optimize
Whoa.
yeah, raised or lowered as necessary to optimize administrative. Man, it's too
No.
specific. The annual dues may be.
I was just thinking like the dues shall not go lower than $15 or $10 or whatever.
We could just take this out of the state committee's hands and just let it be decided by the convention, and just say that it may be changed by the convention. What do you guys think of that?
I personally like that more.
And then that way it doesn't get politicized. You don't need a complicated time limit. But on the flip side, you're stuck with dues, whatever they are, for that term, based on what the membership decides. The alternative is we decide based on what we think our operational needs are. Right? But if we do that, right, I think it's smart and good policy anyway, since it's coming out of their pockets, that we would want their buy-in and want them to agree with it anyway, right? If it's going to upset people, we would want to know about that in advance. You don't want to be doing that in a committee away from the membership. It's just better to put it out there in the open. So maybe raised, maybe changed by the convention, by the annual, at an annual meeting or state convention. It's at a special or regular convention. The language we use for special or convention. Or you can also say annual meeting. It's the same thing. Annual meeting, in our case, counts the same. Anyway, yeah. Or general meeting, whatever. You can use the words for whatever, however you want to do that. I don't know. I think majority's fair on that. I think majority is fair on that. I think it's an operational needs thing, and there's always going to be people who are incentivized to keep dues lower, right? But that may not be what the party needs. And so people who want to raise dues will always be facing an uphill battle anyway. So if we make that threshold too high, then it gets really hard to get, in even just inflation adjustment. We've had $25 as the dues for a long time, right? So like it's very likely it should be raised considerably for Hawaii, but I wouldn't want to do that. I would want the members to decide that. Those are one of those things that's probably better to have it out in a big meeting than it is to try to decide it here. What do you guys think?
Okay, so the new language would read, the standard dues amount may be lowered by a special or regular convention by majority vote.
Yeah, and maybe double check the convention language against what we have. I think it is special and general convention,
Yes, okay.
but whatever
check
it is. Does somebody want to move that? It
Oh,
doesn't
I
have to
thought
be
you
me.
moved
I can move it. We're just having discussion, and it's really in an informal mode. It's get shit done mode, right?
Do you think? Well, it probably shouldn't be mentioned, but I guess the implied task with that then would be if it was brought up to question at convention, the treasurer should do a report with the budget to substantiate any dues increases.
I like that. One addition is I would say I wouldn't want to just limit it so that only the treasurer could bring a proposal, but any dues increase must be accompanied by a proposal is probably a written proposal for the members, right? Would be a really smart addition. I say this because I've seen it a lot in state parties where you have a treasurer that isn't diligent like you are and may not do that, right?
Adding something to a convention agenda, though, does require notice anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm just saying, like, there's situations where the chair might be the one, or the secretary might be the one, or an at-large member might be the one who's advocating for this and saying, "Hey, I think we should raise dues." And so I wouldn't want to necessarily force that to come through the treasurer. But I think that having like a supported, like either financial committee, ad hoc committee, yeah, maybe it is a good idea to put it through the treasurer. What do you
So
think?
yeah, well, I wasn't necessarily saying put it through the treasurer. I was just saying like
Yeah.
if we're gonna put it to convention to discuss what like dues, whether it raises or lowers, then it would also be good to include a discussion on the budget, perhaps, or there would at least need to be some sort of supporting conversation
Yeah.
that would
So
be
like,
budget
yeah,
based. That
must be presented by written proposal 30 days in advance to the membership.
yeah, I think it's fair because to your comment that you made earlier with if it was like made difficult to have an increase, but obviously like costs are raising. I think if there's a legitimate need, this case should be stated. If someone wants to decrease as well, then state the case why they think the budget can afford that.
Let's not make it 30 days. Let's make it 60 days to match the convention notice.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And just say it should be included in the convention notice. No, don't say that. Just 60 days. 60 days notice. That way you don't
Yeah.
spoil a convention notice or like by accident. Like that I think that's a smart idea. If somebody wants to raise the dues, you don't want it happening just on the fly. And a written proposal makes a lot of sense. And
Mhm.
yeah, if the executive committee thinks that they should do that, it's just a much better incentive for them to just do that and present it with the notice, and if not, as long as whoever it is creating a proposal sufficiently in advance for everyone to have time to read it and circulate it, then that seems good. 60 days seems like a long time. You know what? You could just say with prior reasonable notice. What do you guys think?
If that's
60
the rule
days?
for convention, that's how you would have to do it anyway.
Okay, we'll leave it.
Yeah, I like that.
Nick, are you moving this, or would someone like to move this, or should I?
Sure, I'll move it.
All right, I'll
Like to-
second.
Yep.
You have my support. This is good. Okay, any discussion?
So
Hearing none?
we would be substituting what's already there
What's
for
highlighted? Yes.
We would be adding maybe lowered by special convention or regular convention with 60 days notice by majority vote to replace the highlighted portion, right? So the dues amount may be lowered. I would say, can we change the word lowered to changed? I thought I'd already requested that. I didn't realize I didn't get. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Do you have any
changed.
objection, Mr. Zehr?
No, go for it. I
No
agree.
objection from the body. All right, we'll call it a friendly amendment. Um, cool. May be changed by special or regular convention with 60 days notice by majority vote. I would say one for style, regular convention by majority vote with prior notice. Or with 60 days prior notice. It just reads a little better that way. It doesn't. I don't think it matters though. So you can leave it if you want to stylize it later. I don't think that requires quite the level of formality. Bryce,
Would it be in order to move to amend the voting threshold to 2/3?
I'm open to it. My thought is that people who want to raise the dues will already be fighting an uphill battle, right? And that
Right.
it's necessary sometimes. So don't make it too hard to do. That way, if the party grows, people who aren't necessarily business inclined can't, like, it would be actually hard for them to oppose that unless they had a majority, which I think that's the requirement we want, but I'm totally open to the idea of 2/3. What do you guys think?
2/3 was my original suggestion, so I'm in agreement with that.
Abbra
Yeah,
agrees
because
with Bryce.
otherwise, I'm not gonna lie, I might actually be the one to vote against this. I would prefer that dues stay with the executive committee if
You're
that's
gonna
gonna be
break
the
a
threshold.
unanimous streak. No.
Yeah, sorry, I might have to do it if it's the majority
No, good to
threshold.
know.
What a contrarian.
Wow, how dare you? You have disagreement?
Is anyone
Where's the
opposed
punishment stick?
to 2/3?
I'm not opposed to it. I can see the reasoning behind it, especially like you're thinking the executive committee should retain it. We're worried about getting politicized by a bad executive committee. We put it in the hands of the body, and you're right. The same politicization argument can work there too. So 2/3 makes sense. Just
Right. Yeah, basically where I'm at is if you're putting it to the body, you're risking, I mean, there's going to be bureaucracy regardless, but you're expanding the amount of people in the bureaucratic conversation, and Jews are kind of a topic that should be taken a little more seriously. So I think the threshold for going in either direction should be higher than majority.
the other thing is by not including specifically financial language around the donation, it allows for us to do things like in-kind donations. So if someone's doing a lot of volunteer work, and the dues are higher, they could be waived through that. And like that would be a good sell point if someone wanted to try raising them.
Their currencies.
I'm
Right.
I'm good. I'm
I like
open
it.
to this. I think raising the dues is honestly, I'm almost of the opinion that dues might be more of a hindrance than a help compared to effective fundraising. I don't think it's an either or situation, but anyway, I don't know. I don't have any strong opinion.
The
Nick, do
Libertarian
you want to
Party
weigh
of
in?
New York would agree with you because they don't have dues.
Yeah. Maximize your lists that way, and you get people to just join up with a low commitment. And it's very easy to get them to sign up, and then you're basically scouting then for volunteer activation or financial dedication, and you'll get more out of them by asking for those donations towards things they care about than you will by charging them a membership due. you know that's the philosophy that the other parties use. I don't know if it's really right for the LP or not, to be completely honest. I'm Jury's out. Nick, do you have any thoughts?
I'm good with the 2/3.
Okie dokie. Cool. No objection.
He wants to keep the unanimous streak going.
We can throw it down that Bryce proposed an amendment that was accepted without objection to 2/3. Retain the 2/3 language. Bryce held us all hostage by threatening our unity and solidarity with his original unlicensed opinions. You did not
Had to
ask the
do
board of regents. Yeah, we can just vote on it. Do you guys want to have any further discussion? I'll call the question. Does anybody object? Motion passes without objection.
Wouldn't it be funny if I objected to my own amendment?
It would. I'd have to censure you 3 times in a row for the same thing. It's
You
called
know what?
triple jeopardy.
I think that would be an acceptable cost.
I have to do better than Steven. Triple jeopardy. It's the only way I can think of to mock due process more than they do. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, that's gay.
So for Article 4, Section 1, officers must be sustaining or lifetime members. We have elsewhere in the bylaws already that says that you can't be an officer if you're out of state lifetime member. So I was going to just call back to Article 3 on that.
I don't think you'd need to. I think as long as it's stated, then that's fine. You can be a lifetime member, but if you're out of state, you cannot be an officer.
My thought was reading officers and duties as a section alone would give them the idea that they could run for an officer position, whereas in Article 3 it says they can't.
Pursuant to Article 3. Section.
Okay, I like that one.
Section, what the fuck ever it was. I'm sorry. I've got salty language tonight. I'm so sorry to all the libertarian fans and viewers out there, to the millions of people watching this,
Pursuant.
to all our loyal supporters and fans. I apologize for using the F-bomb live on YouTube.
Yeah, don't get us.
They don't like their algorithms to have to work to remove that, to protect your ears. And we try to avoid.
Motion for that one. Pursuant to Article 3 to be added to subsection B.
We have a motion. There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
A second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Now we're entering discussion. All those who want to speak, go ahead and raise your hands or say whatever you want. Any discussion? Discussion. Going once, going twice. No discussion. Moving to a vote. Is there any objection to the motion proposed? Hearing none. Passes without objection. Is there any objection to the accent that I'm using, or rather affectation?
I'm going to
Auctioneer.
object to the accent you're using.
Good, I'm glad, because if you didn't, I would know you weren't really my friend if you just let me keep doing that. It's a test. Haha. I wasn't being retarded for no reason. It was secretly a test.
Okay, so at the end of section 1, I'd like to add a subsection G, because under each of the duties, it repeats the same line under each one that says all officers shall, it basically says each one shall follow the deadlines in these bylaws or state laws. But if we put it in the joint duties up here, it'll just clean up those sections a little bit more.
Okay, so this is a motion to clean up officer duties and responsibilities by consolidating redundant instructions into the joint duties. Is that? Yes, I see it in the sentence.
So
I'll be the
sections,
second for this one, by the way.
Second, motion and a second by Bryce Thon. Any discussion? Abbra, would you like to speak to your motion? Discussion. Going once. Going twice. I can move us to a vote. All right. Is there any objection? Going once, going twice. Hearing none, passes without objection. Thank you. And we can move along.
Okay, I wanted to remove this one because it's actually already covered in Article 5. What article are we in right now? Hold on, sorry guys. Yes, this is Article 4, but if we go down to Article 5, it basically says the same thing. No committee member shall run for public office unless they resign or unless the committee approves their candidacy by majority vote. Conflicts of interest shall be addressed per Article 3, Section 4. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I wrote the wrong one. This one is automatic vacancy. The automatic vacancy is the one that's duplicated. So we have it under meetings and quorum already, so I was thinking we could remove it from, or vice versa. It might make more sense to reverse that.
Keep it
actually.
there in section 6, but remove it from the other section. Would be my suggestion if you're going to clean it.
Yeah, I agree.
Consolidate that language.
So let's see, my new motion there would be to strike Article 5, Section 4B. So I'm gonna go ahead and resolve that one. Article 5.
Motion to strike who?
Section 4B. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and cover this one too, since it's in the same topic. So the original language says if any state committee member is absent for 2 consecutive regular committee meetings, that member's position shall be deemed vacant. This provision shall not be construed to affect the chair's ex officio membership status concerning subcommittees, nor to disparage the state committee's prerogative to excuse absence for cause. The new language here that I'm suggesting would be any member of the executive committee or the state committee who is absent from 2 consecutive regular meetings of the body in which they serve shall have their seat declared vacant unless the committee by majority vote before or at the end of the second meeting excuses the absence for good cause. Subsection B only applies to regularly scheduled meetings for which at least 7 days notice has been given. It does not apply to special or emergency meetings. There is a little bit of ambiguity there, like if somebody wanted to be mean about it, they could schedule like back-to-back meetings, and if we don't specify regular, not special meetings.
No, it does. It already does. It says regular committee meetings right there. Right. So
Okay.
I actually took that into account. I actually still personally, no, I think I like the original language mainly because like when you do the auto vacancy thing, you do need, you're right, you do need to specify that it's regular meetings, right? And it should not be, and yeah, regular committee meetings with notice would be another good way to say it, right? Don't set a different notice requirement, just say regular committee. Whoa, what did I do there? Sorry, regular committee meetings with, I would add with notice. And then this provision here, the reason why is Robert's rules say that the chair is technically a member of every subcommittee of the organization, right? By virtue of his office. So
Oh, I see. Well,
so that's why two or more.
Understanding what that meant.
That would mean that it would auto resign the chair from any subcommittee that he might otherwise be able to sit in on if he doesn't attend them.
Okay.
And that just, it's a little too much, right? So that's why it's written that way. And then the provision also is not to disparage the state committee's prerogative to excuse absences. We should delete the words for cause, because I think that's too strong, but to excuse absences, right? So as
Okay.
long as, if I'm not going to be there at the committee, I'm having an emergency or I have something scheduled and I let y'all know, right? The committee can totally excuse my absence. But if I just don't show up, right? I have only twice that I can just stand you guys up before that is considered an automatic resignation. And that's important because that way you can't have somebody who like doesn't want to show up and sandbags the committee until they get what they want, right? That kind of gamesmanship should just get you cut off, right? And also you don't want people who just don't, you can excuse their absence, right? But that takes a special and specific act to do so. So it takes a positive act of forgiveness to prevent the automatic resignation. And there's no punishment here. Nobody gets on trial for missing. It's just 2 or more consecutive unexcused absences is interpreted as a resignation according to these bylaws. And I really support this, by the way. I would just say that like
This goes up there though.
I support the idea of making sure, and I know how this committee worked before I became the chair and before the 2023 convention in particular. There was definitely a need for this. There were committee members who were, just literally like I don't want to talk bad about anybody, but man, there was nothing, absolutely nothing happening, right? And it's okay if there's committee members who maybe don't get a lot done. They show up and they vote on things and represent their people. That's fine. You don't got to be the workhorse to sit on the committee. But if you're not even going to show up, right? There's other people who will and will do the job, right? So like I think it's a reasonable professional expectation for the board. Especially since we do electronic meetings. Like, anyway, I'm not gonna sit here and talk about it anymore. I don't know if you guys feel the same way. I will not be offended if it's a point of disagreement. What do you think, Abbra? You proposed
6A2. So wait, Article 4, 6A2. Move to replace with Article 4.2. No, 4.2, 4.6.2 is what I said, right?
Can I ask something really quick? Are these two passages basically identical?
4A2. Yes. Here, I'll go back up.
Too far. There it is.
It doesn't have the ex officio.
No, this is great. I actually think having it in both places is smart for a couple of reasons. One, it reinforces this provision, articulated 2 different ways, but saying almost the same thing. This it contains something important that the other one doesn't. The vacated member may seek reinstatement at the following regularly held meeting, provided another member in good standing is willing to sponsor the motion. So that gives them the right to try to edge back in if it's, whatever, and the committee can vote on that, right? That's only one meeting. You miss two meetings and it's an oopsie and whatever, and nobody has specifically excused your absence, you can seek that through motion, even if you've technically already like auto resigned. So this is like the process to reinstate yourself, right? It has to be brought in the immediately following meeting after the vacancy, right?
Is there a reason not to just combine those and put them in section 6 though?
There are a couple good reasons. One is that this defines vacancy, right? And deals with that. The redundancy emphasizes this and deals with the meeting attendance, and an important other deal with this with ex officio membership and the status of subcommittees, right? And yeah, that's fair. That's fair. We could just move and merge this to 4A2. Okay,
I can say merge with, and that way I retain anything that's not repetitive.
Sure. And one thing I noticed just at a glance before I lose my thought here that we should probably look at next is you might want to say something like more oops.
Oh, okay. That's good.
Yeah.
You can save it.
You might want to say we might want to say here more than half of the total voting members of the committee. No, total members of the whole committee. No, I should just leave it. That's why I left it that way.
Sounds the same.
Never mind. Never mind. I forgot. That was why we left it.
All right.
Committee.
So the new motion is to add with prior notice, strike for cause, and to merge this section with Article 4, Section A2.
What do you guys think? Is that a motion? Has anybody moved it? I can move it if nobody else wants to.
I will second.
Okay. Cool. Motion in a second. Is there any discussion? All right. Hearing none, I'll move us to a vote. All those in, well, I'm sorry. Is there any objection to the new language? All right. Hearing none, passes without objection. These will be up for review, so if anybody is watching online and they're horrified that nobody is like trying to argue this point or that isn't maybe on your mind,
We are
just a
seeking
reminder.
feedback.
Yeah, we if you send us a note or you want to leave a comment for us to consider, we can, and you can absolutely, we want you and anybody interested to come weigh in. We'd rather like hash it all out here in these committees than have a big knockdown, drag out fight at convention. And so it's important because that way we can figure it out and come together on the same page and not waste all the delegates' time. Anyway, I just thought I would throw that out there because there are some people who have been following along, and we are grateful that you are.
Article 6, Section 2A says special conventions may be called by the chair, by 5 state committee members, or per the parliamentary authority with the same powers and notice as the regular conventions, except as specified by this section. My thought here is that the state committee members' size will vary depending on our affiliate activity, the way that it's set up. And so I'd like to change the 5 setting to a majority of the state committee.
If we do that, then we should simply say by the state committee. It probably shouldn't require a specified majority. You can specify majority, but just by the state committee should be fine. I don't think it requires a 2/3 or anything. Just saying by the chair, by the state committee, or per the parliamentary authority.
Strike just replace with the state committee.
And honestly, do you guys want the chair to have the ability to just call the thing? Or you want to put in language that, allows the state committee to supersede? Maybe if we put state committee before or by the chair, right? Or alternatively by the chair.
I mean, I feel like there's only so many reasons to call a special convention anyway.
I just mean like those can be fights like, oh, I want it here and oh, I want it there. The chair says, well, the bylaws say that I can call it wherever I want. You guys are too late. You had to vote. I booked the hotel. Tough shit.
Doesn't our financial restrictions prevent stuff like that?
I mean, I could sign us a contract right now, and unless you guys stopped me in time, you'd have to go through and accuse me of misconduct and bring me up on a trial and go through all that bullshit over whatever transaction you don't like.
You're suggesting that it just be the state committee or the parliament?
I'm gaming out how a bad chair behaves with this, and I'm just saying, you get a bad chair who wants to, for whatever reason, fight over convention.
This one, we're part of the parliamentary authority.
Meaning there's a process in honor by which you can call a convention. And especially if like the board goes completely ghost ship, right? This would allow the members to restart without needing to like form a new organization.
I would say leave the chair's ability to call it, but
subject to the committee?
Yes.
Subject to the committee.
The chair, subject to the committee. Special conventions may be called by the chair, subject to the state committee. Do we all like that? Bryce, do you want to move it? I'm sorry, I kind of interrupted you. Sweet.
I kind of figured that me saying that would, yeah, I'll formally move it.
Yeah, you kind of did move it. I'm sorry.
I'll second.
All right, Nick wants to second. Any discussion? I was going to look before we end this with the same powers and notice requirements as regular conventions, except as specified by this section. Special conventions do not end an officer's term nor elect non-vacant positions unless specified in Article 4. Special conventions may also be referred to as general membership meetings. We may want to add the word henceforth for past interpretive reasons, but that's secondary and probably doesn't matter. I like it. All right. No further discussion from anybody. I'll move us to a vote. Any objection? Hearing none, passes without objection. Excellent. Hey, you did a good job on these highlights, Abbra. Thank you.
Obtain executive committee, state committee, or special convention approval. It
clarifies that this could be approved by any of the above bodies. So if we really wanted to, we could confine our primary to our convention. If we needed to protect our primary, which is very likely in Hawaii, this gives us the ability to hold a special convention at which candidates can be elected, right? To represent us, so we can.
I worry about the ability to hold a special convention and the time requirement for filing for candidate. Like that
We have plenty of time to do it. We could,
and
if we're planning.
So far, we've kept all of the election and delegation and all of that nonsense out of the convention really well, just by not putting that in the convention's hands.
Well, yeah, but like I'm thinking forward to, what happens when we have a governor candidate that wants to represent the party and Joe Schmo wants to run against him, and Joe Schmo is friendly with the Democrats, and in Hawaii's open primary, in a safely Democrat race where we look like we're going two-way, they can literally jump in and poison our ballots and vote for their guy on our name. There would be nothing we could do to stop that other than to sue them off the ballot for lacking our endorsement. And then there's no guarantee that the court would actually take them off the ballot. This would be the best recourse that we have is a process that we could implement through this rule, which gives the convention authority to select their candidates. That would, in fact, probably be something that would, like, if you had to sue somebody off the ballot, that's a much stronger basis to do so, right? And it also helps to prevent people who maybe would have the idea the House will be in support of whatever candidate is selected by our people, right? Not the guy who circumvents that process. So that is the hope of this, is that it gives us the ability to do an in-house primary, right? And it allows either the executive committee, state committee, or special convention, respectively. Like
The other thing is I think the executive committee is only 4 members, right?
yes. So this is the idea. Let's say that
What if there's a tie?
let's say that there's a bunch of candidates and we need a whole bunch of interviews done. This is delegatable from these committees, but each one has greater authority in this list than the one before it, right? So if the executive committee, right, can handle it, great. If the state committee wants to step in, great. If it's contentious and there's a big disagreement about who we want to run for what place, we can literally hold the special convention around that, right? So this gives us options and protects us from some of Hawaii's stupidest laws surrounding our primary. That's my personal opinion, and if you guys don't agree, it's really okay. I won't be offended. I'll only cry a little bit. But that's normal for me. I am the crying Hawaiian. I got expectations to live up to.
I think we should ask Kyle Davis his opinion of this.
I can call him right now. Kyle, come on. I need your opinion on this. I know he's going to watch this at some point. I do not hate you, Kyle Davis. In a better world, we would be friends.
Okay. So I guess
What do you? I mean, it's okay if I've talked you out of this one. I'll be happy about that. But don't let me just talk you out of it. Like if you feel like it's a good idea.
I'm not sure I'm fully understanding this mechanism anyway. I feel like if anybody can just sign up as a libertarian on the ballot, then they can sign up as a libertarian on the ballot. Like we're
Yes, but in our bylaws give us a lot more authority to enforce our candidate selection process. And I would also revise this to candidate selection. Would be really smart. Would be changing that section's name. But we'll come to that in a second. That's stylistic, not substantive. This is in order for a candidate to be eligible according to our party bylaws, they must obtain one of these 3 things. If they have one or of these 3 things, they can appear in the primary. The danger is, and they have to have one of these 3. The danger is if these things are in disagreement with each other, then it's going to be settled in the thing. But at least it's originating from inside the House and not like a Democrat, right? So, one thing we could do is remove the executive committee from the list if you want, and then it's either the state committee or a special convention. Right. That way.
That's what my suggestion was state committee or special convention. I don't fully understand the special convention mechanism.
To control,
totally honest,
to control primary candidates. Like we could
Just-
literally winnow them down. Like basically when somebody appears on the ballot in Hawaii, they attest that they are.
The whole, isn't it like 60 days notice for a convention?
Yeah, so if we noticed it, let's say in November, we're looking ahead and we're like, okay, it's an election year coming up, right? So the window opens in February to allow candidates, or in January to allow candidates to start filing, right? But it doesn't close until late May, June, right? So you have a long period there where you could send notice in January and then you could hold it in March and be well in advance of your final date to get signatures and all of that. So well before lock-in. But again,
But then we're also like encouraging candidates to wait till the last minute to file. So like how practical is that for us as a party to like
we
do
don't have
that for every
we don't have to wait till the
every
last.
candidate
We're
with a
supposed to be
question
gathering,
too? Like
getting your signature pipeline ready for that. But the if you were doing like a gubernatorial race, you would need a bunch of signatures, and this would also give them the ability to get that. So these people pull papers, and it would have to pull earlier. That they would come to the Libertarian Convention, and they would seek the convention approval, right? So this would be like for a higher office position if we had a contest on that. That way, if the candidate is eligible to be our candidate, it's an eligibility question. And if the state presents somebody against him who's somebody's self-subscribed and makes the oath and says they're a libertarian and that they want to run under our name, we can correctly claim under our bylaws that they are not eligible. That's the whole point of this language. If we put it just in the state committee's hands, that's fine. And I guess that works for practical purposes. But just the reasoning behind the convention language or the cascading authority here is to give us utility in Hawaii. You might be right that it could create an issue because we're not specifying what is subject to what. You know, executive committee subject to state committee, subject to special convention approval. But we don't want to imply that that is required, right? So executive subject to state or special convention approval would probably be maybe a more specific way to word it, but I don't know if that's even technically necessary.
including executive committee. Executive committee is 4 members.
Obtain executive committee subject to state committee or special convention approval. So I would say on this, it would be obtain, whoops, executive committee approval subject to state, I'm going to say SC, state committee or
SC or SC approval.
SpecCon. SpecCon. All right. Obtain EC approval subject to SC or SpecCon.
Okay.
And then don't say the word approval so that it's just subject to them, so that they are over that if they need to intervene. Otherwise, the executive committee can handle it. So,
Gotcha.
does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that is just the 4 officers. So you have chair, secretary. I mean, really, maybe it is better to just say state committee subject to special. Yeah, no, just leave it like that. That makes sense.
Are you moving
So-
it out?
Yeah. So any motion in a second could bring any questionable candidate before the state committee. If you don't agree with what the executive committee is doing, you could literally just make a motion, right, to interview that candidate.
Oh,
And
second.
boom, that would be it. right? And that I think that would probably be enough of a check. And then otherwise it takes some of the drama out. If it's in committee hands, there's a high probability the executive committee is dealing with it unless there's a reason to bring it before the state committee, right? And if that's the case, it could also go to the special convention. And that's kind of the pathway that I think we've carved out. Bryce, I'm curious, do you have a different perspective on this? It's okay if you're kind of a different experience over there. Just curious.
Um, can you see, as far as candidates go, no, I'm fine with the language you got.
Can we add on stylistic change to the title, change vetting and approval to be replaced by
I
selection?
will restyle non-substantive stuff before it goes in its final form.
Okay, good. Because I think I wrote that and it's just bothering me.
All right, we have a motion in a second.
All right. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll move us to a vote. Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion passes without objection. I want to see what you have proposed for D.
Well, it might be irrelevant
I like that you brought it up.
since we're keeping the special convention. It
Strike.
just seems like a time constraint.
I agree.
On top of another time constraint. Like it's just
I agree. So this is the motion to strike.
yeah.
Strike D. Who wants to strike D?
If you're potentially going to need a special convention approval, you may want 90 days anyway. So
Are you motioning to strike D with a stick or a pin? I'm sorry.
I would smite the 90-day requirement.
I think, yeah, Abra, I think you're totally right. I think D needs to be smitten. I mean, struck.
We'll say motion to strike.
Abra, that is political violence.
Yeah, Abbra, you just violated the nap. We need to remove you.
Sorry. I'm gonna have to bring you up on.
I've been really violent against this working draft then, if we want to go that way.
Tonight, I'm gonna put you through a disciplinary process.
Motion by Abbra Green to strike. Who seconded that? Somebody seconded that. Or no?
Who wants the honors?
I'll second it since.
Can you reflect for the record that chair cackles like a crow?
No, there's not enough room. Sorry.
It's been
It's not going on
recorded.
the record.
Yeah, but I don't know if
There's a
anyone's still
permanent
with us at
copy.
this point.
All right, motion in a second.
Any further discussion? Calling the question. Any objection? Passes without objection. Without objection. Good job.
Sounds
Dude.
like Nicholas would like us to motion to adjourn. If I'm reading his comment correctly.
Yeah, I didn't want
can't
to.
believe you still talk to that guy.
All right.
Oh, you mean Nick
We
Zehr,
can-
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
can
I was
definitely
gonna say I didn't want to interrupt that last thought, but since it's
You're good.
already 8:30, I was wondering if we could just move the remaining revisions to the next one.
No, I'm glad you asked. That sounds good to me. Any objection to joining? All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. We are now adjourned, and definitely am glad that we have this wonderful crew. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for watching. Aloha, and see you next time.